Welcome to RealCraft. My name is Don Reese, and today I want to go over how to install one of our floating shelves, the system that we have, that we offer, that we sell from here. First, I kind of want to say these are the tools. Here are two shelves that we're going to install today, 30 inches long, and they have the hardware, which I will speak of. I kind of want to go over the tools needed to put this together to begin with. Obviously, what I really liked, well, first of all, you have to have a cup of coffee if it's early enough in the day, just saying. And then I always use blue tape, and you'll see me use this and why I really am in favor of blue tape. Tape measure, there'll be some screws that come, Allen wrench will come with the kit. You're going to need a drill bit for mounting to the wall. Typically some kind of stud sensor, unless you know where the studs are. A level of the particular length to handle it, and this is a square bit screwdriver that will put these particular screws in. If it's Phillips, use Phillips, obviously. This here is how you're going to receive your shelves, and we've gone with a hardware system that we find is superior. And so this is a French cleat, aluminum French cleat method, and a French cleat is such that you're mounting a piece on the wall and the shelf part will clip onto it and form a solid barrier and hold it on the wall. The reason we chose this is it'll hold a lot of weight without sagging if you properly install it. And what we've seen on the market, which typically is a bracket screwed to the wall with long rods that enter into the shelf, is that tends to not hold much weight. It's weak. It's completely dependent on the joint between the rod and the flat bar. And so this is by far superior. So this is how it'll come and how it'll look. Today we're going to put in a thick one. And here we have our standard, which will be 1 3/4 inches. And there's a choice in terms of how thick one will want their shelf. As it comes, it will basically, this is a U shaped with the cleat, the male part of a French cleat, and then it'll be completely screwed and anchored into the shelf. And that's all that's needed. And this is how it will come. And of course, you're going to get the female piece, which is what we are going to mount to the wall. Today we're going to install these two shelves on this wall here, and basically we're going to be in approximately this area. So I just want to put this down as a reference point. It isn't particularly level, and at this point I'm going to try and just determine where the studs are. I need at least 2 stud connections, and I'm going to be able to handle more weight depending on how many studs or anchors I can get into solid framing in the wall. So I have our stud sensor here, and we're going to okay, I appear to have one here. I'm going to mark it. I appear to have one here. So I need to be at least in this area. So I want to find the center of the stud. I certainly don't want to be along the edge. And I need to get 2 studs, so I'm going to have to position the shelf so that I'm making a connection here. I'm going to lay some tape vertically in this area that now I need to be level. So we're going to hold up the shelf and determine, what looks right, what we're going to want, and what will get me in this range. If I want a specific exact measurement to the top of the shelf, I've marked roughly what aesthetically looks good at this point. If I want to make sure the top of the shelf actually hits that point, then I need to, particularly on a thicker one, I need to measure down from the top of the shelf to the top of the piece that I will be removing and anchoring to the wall. And here I have this set out a little bit, and I can see that I have about 3/4 of an inch from the top of the shelf to the top of the piece that I need to anchor to the wall. So we're going to measure down 3/4 of an inch, and then we will level across so that we know we have a good point. So I'm going to come down and mark 3/4 of an inch, and I'm not going to use that. That wants to be the top of the shelf. And I'm going to level this across. Now you might be leveling across quite a number of studs to get across, and that we want to be accurate. And this will be top of shelf. So now, since I see that this shelf is longer, which is going to be typical, than the bracket itself, then I want to make sure, I want to think in terms of where's my length so that I'm making contact with here. And I'm seeing that I have, let's measure this. In this case, it looks like about 4 to 4.25 inches from the end of the bracket to the end of the shelf. So I'm going to pull this out, and I know as I set this, my shelf is going to stick 4.25 inches past this. So this has to hit the studs behind the wall, but I have to think if I have a specific length, and the shelf would basically goes to the end of this tape. But so I've got a placement of here, and I'm going to mark my bracket because I'm going to need to drill, pre-drill, and that is where I'm going to be putting my anchor points. So we know this 4.25 inches past this point will be at the end of the shelf. So let's proceed to drill what we need to get this prepared to be anchored to the wall. Typically studs in a house, or most American standards, are 16 on center. So I haven't determined exactly, I don't trust stud sensors to tell me exactly the center. Some are better, some aren't. And so I've determined I have a stud here. But I want to hit the center of the stud, not the edge of the stud that would split it out. And I'm measuring here, and as you can see, I'm seeing about 15.5 inches from the center of tape to center of tape. Now, that's not close enough for me. And so what I typically am going to do, this blue tape, I put another piece of blue tape down, and I'm going to put in some nail holes to make sure that I'm doing it in a section that I know will be covered by the shelf. So I want to find and make sure that I'm hitting the center of the stud. So okay, I hit a stud, I hit a stud, I missed. So I know these three are good. So I know that in a sense, the true stud mark is between these three, and I'll be good. So I'm going to lay that down there. And I'm going to also check over here. That's good. That's good. That's a miss. So I can determine from even these three small holes where the stud is. The edge of the stud is somewhere between these two, so I'm pretty much right on with the tape that I have now in the center of the stud, so I'm going to be good with that. Now we're going to move to pre-drilling our bracket for mounting to the wall. And we're now going to, we know this is the end of the shelf. We want 4 1/4 to come in. So let's, we've got the end of the bracket here, and we know the end of the shelf is approximately here, in which case that here's the length of the shelf, and we marked here the end of our bracket. So we're going to lay this on the wall with the angle piece that would catch, that's going to catch the French cleat in the upward position. And we want to, this was inaccurate, our estimate from before. This is the correct one. And this original one was good, so we're going to go with that. Now we're going to pre-drill and then prepare to go to mount this on the wall. Now we're going to supply the screws that will be typical for an American wall, which is typically 1/2 to 5/8 of an inch sheetrock with a wood stud surface behind it. And this is typical of what you'll have as a pan head, that we don't want to create too much depth to interfere with the operation. And so here we've selected a drill bit that is going to give clearance for this screw through the bracket. And there are 2 indent lines, and that is where the hole should be done and limited to just those particular indented lines. So we're going to finish drilling those, and then we'll come and do the installation. Now we're going to mount this to the wall. We've got our holes. We're basically going to set it up. We've got where the end of it is. We're going to come up to our mark that was level that we did before. And we're going to mount. Okay, now we've set our bracket Now it's time we can kind of clean up a little bit. So I'm basically going to cut this tape off because we don't need it anymore. We've used it, it's been our guide. So now we do know the end of the shelf, as we have it figured, will be about 4¼ inches. So it is not a bad idea to give us kind of a guide out 4¼ so we know that we're anchoring well on our bracket. So at this point we want to make sure that we're aligned, and you can feel it with your finger that you know you have this ledge, and you want to check that you have the matching ledge in an upward position. And then you're basically, we're going to set it up here. Now we basically have it on the bracket. You're gonna feel along the back to make sure you're completely on, and then you wanna look along the edge to make sure the bottom is making contact. And we're basically out to our line here, in which case the shelf is set. Now, you will notice here, this is something that we will include is Allen wrenches, and we've put that in the bottom, and you don't need them, but this makes a more permanent location so that you aren't going to come bouncing along and knock the shelf off the wall. So basically you've got some set screws that will go and lock the shelf in place so that it's not completely permanent, but you can certainly, this will lock it into a safer, more secure location. Again, what we have when you buy a floating shelf from RealCraft, you get real wood. There's no plywood, there's no composites, you're getting the real thing. And it comes in a long line of, I shouldn't say that, comes in a variety of wood species that one can choose from walnut, alder, wingay, oak. So there's a good selection. This is our standard thickness, which is 1¾ inch. Several species we offer a 2-inch and 2¼ inch, and then once we get wider than 2¼ inch or any particular species, then it becomes much more like a shelf that is similar to our countertop construction, which we also offer as a wood product. And here, these are laminated pieces for extra thick and extra custom shelving. So, so you have a selection of thicknesses. We do lengths up to 10 feet, so they're totally capable with short lengths, but here this is probably the shortest one would go, but you need, again, 2 studs of security, and you get more weight capacity with the more studs. And now one interesting thing that one might find is a lot of walls will be not totally flat, in which case you might find that you've got a stud farther in which case you're going to have to put a spacer or bring it out so that the piece on the wall isn't going down the wall like this, which would prevent the shelf from sitting firmly, in which case a washer or something might be needed to make that adjustment. And that's true both with the shelf system and also with the mantle system that we offer. That also is a French cleat mounting system, which we find to be the strongest and most useful and easy to install.